something. An apple.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the School District of West Allis, West Milwaukee et al. To order, please. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Mr. Bailey, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Suzette, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Sujaki.
Here.
Ms. Emmons.
Here.
Mr. Keller.
Here.
Mrs. Johnston.
Here.
Mr. Ustra.
Here.
Ms. Curran is on her way. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Bailey.
Here.
President Sickett.
Present. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. That wasn't supposed to happen. Any additions or corrections to this evening's agenda by board members or Dr. Lexman?
I have nothing this evening.
Board members, seeing that, we'll move on to public comments. The first person, and before I call the name, just want to remind people that our policy is a 3-minute limit. We do not debate or provide answers here, but after the meeting, if there's a specific question asked, you will receive an answer via email or telephone from the superintendent or myself before the next scheduled school board meeting. And also, please state your name and address for the records. First speaker is Douglas Freiberg.
My name is Douglas Freiberg, 9448 West 11th Street, 53214. Happy Monday. First thing, you guys got through the budget and the tax levy. Thanks for all your work on that. A little bummed out it went up, but hey, got through it, so good job on all that. On a personal note, I'd like to thank a few of the board members for providing a lot of community contact and conversation, specifically Heather and Noah. It's been entertaining at times, but very informative most of the time. So thank you very much for reaching out to the folks in the community. And I am back to speak about community schools one more time, since it's a workshop tonight. And now that you're done with the budget, I'd like to point out that the administration abruptly ended the intra-district transfers, claiming budget numbers are doing much better these days as far as budget numbers go. And so I hope you guys are revisiting that seriously. I'd also like to point out situations like ours. Our neighbor a block away, Miss Riley, she's in 4th grade. My daughter's currently in 5th grade at Irving. Both of them are intra-district transfers over to Irving at the moment. They share a lot of time together, a lot of free time. My daughter helps her out at school. It's a lot of fun, and it's really nice having her around, especially to help with the 3-year-old. Unfortunately, because my son is 3, he's going to get transferred out of our community school. Our friends live in the neighborhood. They attend the same school. We lose our transport for daycare that we've had for 11 years. It's going to be a really big deal for my family. Even though my son is 3, we're probably not going to be in 4K this year, so we do have some time to wait for decisions. But at least the hard stop, at least review the hard stop and really work on some exceptions, especially for families that have been active in their schools, such as my family has been. Both my wife volunteer a lot. I'm on the PTA. I'm at school a lot. I know all of the teachers. I assist all the teachers, and it's going to be difficult to lose my community and our friends as such as we are. So that's all. So when you're talking about that, just keep those things in mind. So thanks for all your hard work, guys.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Kelly Norton.
Hello, my name is Kelly Norton, and I live at 1026 South 111th Street. That's 53214.
I come here tonight both wearing two hats. I am a parent of two children in the West Allis, West Milwaukee schools, and I'm also an occupational therapist in the Wauwatosa schools. And an issue that's really important to me and many in education and our families is the issue of the CISA 1 common week for spring break that's being implemented in many local districts in the 2018-2019 school year. I feel that West Allis, most likely in an attempt to be proactive, selected the alternate week. They're the only district out of 45 in CISA 1 that is currently having their spring break the first week in April in 2019, and a number of other local districts, including my own workplace, is choosing the common CISA week. So you might wonder, why would this be of importance? Is it just affecting a small number of people? When surveyed in the fall, the district surveyed the parents in our district, and they asked, would they prefer a common week? Of the respondents, 77.8% did prefer a common week. Now, at that time, in that survey, there was an option of which week would you prefer. And given the choices, about two-thirds, 66.1, said either the last week in March or no preference. The other third had said the first week in April, and I can admit I actually suggested that as well, just out of convenience at the time, not knowing that there would be a common week selected in March. Now that I have that, I would have certainly not said April, because that means that, like many educators, we don't have PTO like some people in the private sector have. Yes, there's additional flexibility in the summertime, but there's not the flexibility during the school year. I have one personal day per year. They can't be used the week before or after break, and I know many of our educators have that same dilemma, where our children, many of them, in fact, I have a middle schooler next year, would not be eligible for action programs that are those week-off programs. So with the rise in substance abuse issues, with the rise in internet concerns, we have a swath of children that, if they were to have a common break, would be able to be participating in community programs that are often held on the weeks that our students are not in school. For example, the Girl Scouts of Southeastern Wisconsin has a nice program that you could do over spring break. The Wisconsin Humane Society has day-off camps. Unfortunately, unless you live in West Allis and work in West Allis, the first week in April would not benefit private families that work in the private sector or anyone else in public education. In terms of additional things that could be an issue, childcare, certainly, travel possibilities with family and friends that live in neighboring districts. I know many of us have connections beyond just our immediate families. That's a challenge. Attracting and retaining high-quality educators. I think if all things are equal on the table, and parents have to choose between not having time off with their children during the year and having that opportunity in another district, they may choose that. I'm already, to be honest, a little bit nervous about the coming year. I'm not planning to change my place of employment, but the concern about this issue is already causing stress to me, and I know a number of my children's educators. And just to kind of add a final note on this, as you know, people in education go above and beyond all the time. It's not a 9-to-5 job. We're writing IEPs at night. We're there in the morning. We're doing things on the weekend. There are students. We love children because that's why we're in education. As much as we love children and we spend time with them every day, day in and day out, there's a place where we'd really like to spend some of that time back with our own families, to regroup, to rejuvenate, so we can come back and offer those same high-quality services back to our kids. So just something I'd like you to think about. I did send an email with this information, and I know more is being discussed at other points, but I hope that this might be considered as a possibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Those were the only two individuals that signed up to address the board. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to come up and address the board? Now would be your time. And I don't know when you came in, but if you could give us your name and address for the...
Sure.
For the
So
records.
I came in late. So, my name is Jill Wessel, and I am at 2002 South 93rd Street, 53227. I am here this evening representing PTA Council, and I just wanted to remind everyone that February 11th from 12 to 4 is the Council Carnival at Central, and it is for all ages, not just the little ones. Also, just a little bit looking forward, we will be having on March 14th the School Board Forum, which I know affects a few of you, and even though it doesn't affect all of you, we'd love to have you all there. Letters will be going out, but just while everybody's eyes and ears are here. And for all of you that are out here, you can send in questions and submit those if you would like to have ideas for the questions for the school board forum. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll give one last call if there's anybody else that would like to address the board at this time. Seeing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Thank you. We're going to start with 7.1, the report from our West Allis Nathan Hale High School student representatives. I think we have a very special fill-in guest to a suite.
In recognition of the students, I actually gave them a day off, official day off, when it was their, you know, they've been working real hard with exams, and then they have it land on a Monday, and then they come in. So I said I would come in and present on their behalf.
Great.
So actually, one of them's in Florida, coming back on a flight as I speak, so it was good for him. So, first of all, Happy New Year. Look forward to a great 2018, so it's going to be an exciting year. Couple things I just wanted to talk about, and the kids would have talked a little bit about the end of the semester and the planning ahead. Our Nathan Hale Husky drama production coming up this weekend, and we just had a Husky Nation 8th grade expo recently. I'll talk a little bit about, and then just like an athletic update, because we have some good things going on at Hale right now, and I want to keep that going. So, new semester, just had exams last week. Kids worked really hard, and getting ready already for next year. So we have scheduling starting already, hitting the 1 week out. We'll be meeting with homerooms and getting kids talking, reflecting on their ACP lessons, whether it's using career cruising and some of their interest surveys. We've had the career fair, which everyone knows about, and so utilizing some of those things to try to sign up for the classes that match up to some of those interests that they have and strengths and things like that. We're actually this year using the online portion of Skyward to actually have kids sign up. So instead of having it all come in on sheets and having a secretary or support staff putting all those numbers in, we're working with them to get their sheets prepared, recollect them, distribute them, and then have them in social studies classes work through that on the computers. So that'll be a new thing, so that's exciting. Performing arts, we have our play this weekend, just so you know, Play On, it's called. And I'm just going to read this little blurb. Yeah, Play On is a hilarious story of a theater group trying to desperately put on a play in spite of maddening interference from a haughty author who keeps revising the script. There's 3 acts. One is the rehearsal of the dreadful show. The second act is near disastrous dress rehearsal. And the final act is the actual performance. It says in which anything that can go wrong goes wrong. So it's a comedy, definitely. Shows on Thursday, Friday, Saturday at 7:30. 2 o'clock matinee on Saturday, so there's 4 total shows. And the theater group under the direction of Jordan Pollard now. He's directing the play, assisted by Zach Beeksma. These maybe are some names that have been in presenting before. Haley Wright is a new English teacher. Scott Grimscheid keeps flowing back and forth. He'll be doing our musical, actually, at Hale this year. So the kids hope you can attend. 2 tickets will be at the ticket area waiting for you. So just let them know who you are, and they'll be, so hopefully you can attend. Others that are interested out there, tickets are for sale when you enter the Commons area, $7 for adults, $5 for students and seniors. And the tickets go for Dr. Lexman as well, so don't forget that. Okay. Husky Nation 8th grade expo we had last week. We've done part of the transition program. We've done an expo night for parents that bring along their students. But in working with Central as well, they did the same afternoon at Central. We bussed over kids from 3 intermediate schools to their school they're going to attend next year, the 8th graders. So they went to Central or Hale, and we ran programming on that afternoon of an exam day. So at Hale, we had, I want to say I had 100 kids involved with it, with all the activities and the athletics. So they sat at their tables ready to talk to all the kids that came through. We do the expo night at night because the parents definitely, we don't want to X them out either, so we want them to know what's going on. But we don't get all the families and all the kids. On this one, we pretty much, except the kid that's not there because they're sick or something, was there. So we had 300 kids come from the 3 intermediate schools. Got there about 11:30, buses picked them up, got there about noon. We had a little introduction about what the day is all about and what they could get out of it and why we were doing it. And really, in the end, it was just part of the transition program, trying to familiarize themselves with activities, athletics, and the elective areas. So it was an opportunity to talk to actually the elective teachers about what the classes are, because there's so many choices once you come to high school. So we had electives in the auxiliary gym, and in the north and south end of the main gym, we had part athletics and part activities on both ends. And just allowed them to go up and talk to a couple student leaders and put their name on and put their phone number, contact information. And so really just no commitment, just an interest, and reach out and start that phase with transition. Feedback I got from the kids was it was successful with that. The kids really did interact with, even though it was kind of open-ended, like just step up to a table and have a conversation. We talked prior about what kind of questions could you ask, what would you want to know, those kinds of things. So thought it was a success, and hopefully we get everybody. I just said everybody should be at least one thing, you know, if we can get everybody in one thing. If they don't have something that they're attached to, come up and we'll make it happen, you know, which we have. We've had a bunch of different offerings in the last 2-3 years that kids came in with new ideas. And then athletic update, wrestling and basketball, 2 real success stories this year so far. The wrestling team is amidst the successful season, dual record of 22 wins and 4 losses. They've won team tournament titles in the Lamira Duels, Hamilton Holiday Duels, and the recent Bauer Brawl that we host. 3 wrestlers are currently ranked in state: Peyton Mako, Marshall Rushton, and Sam Castor. And actually this Thursday they go up against Tosa West, and if they win that, they secure a conference dual meet title. So that's a neat thing. Girls basketball, 8-1 in the conference right now. So on top of the Greater Metro Conference, so they're competing very well. So they're first place there. They're 14-1 overall, only losing 1 game to Brookfield East by 2 points, I want to say. Their current ranking is 7th in the state in all Division I schools. So that sets a nice tone in the building and some excitement going on there. On January 30th, just to keep you part of this, the cameras will be in Hale Gym. There's a outfit, W7 Productions. It's a live stream television using Facebook Live. So there's going to be some cameras there doing live version of the game there against Divine Savior Holy Angel, and we just beat them by, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 points recently, so we have them in a couple weeks. So they're definitely a very tough opponent and an exciting game ahead. This past weekend, guard Zoe Burchick was named Channel 6 Hot Shot of the Week, so she was on TV last night at 10:30 and doing a focus on her and the team. Natalie Laguzamon was named Honorable Mention Player of the Week for Southeast Wisconsin last week. And after a big win against Brookfield Central on January 5th, the team was named the Quick Trip Road Team of the Week. The one team in the state gets named that each week. So neat stuff. We got some good stuff going, and hope we keep the momentum rolling and starting off the second semester strong. So.
Quick question, Matt.
Yeah.
The wrestling meet at Tosa or at Hale?
At Tosa.
At Tosa, thank you. Board Member Dan?
Thank you, Jeff. Congratulations from all of us to all of you. My question is, when you were talking about Skyward, how well did that go for you?
It's going to. So yeah. So so not this very first week, because we're just passing out new schedules tomorrow.
Okay.
So they'll run their schedule, but next week they're going to go and start signing up for their classes, and the following week we're going to actually set them up with the computers, and they'll be doing that in class. So I'll know a little bit more next month.
Thanks. I misunderstood your wording.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Nope, that's fine.
Sue?
Poor Jeff Borland, he won't be able to have stick-em notes to, I mean, he was our go-to person for scheduling. But,
Oh, you do?
yes. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to commend both Hale and Central on what an outstanding job you guys did with the 8th grade event. I went to both of them, and one of the big things for success for a student is connecting with that student and having a student connect to an organization or music or art or whatever it is. And I watched, I sat at I didn't sit at tables, I stood at tables and watched kids connecting with their contemporaries and asking questions, and I think robotics might have been the most popular, but it was between your foreign language and connecting with all of the different groups and all of the clubs. It was just an outstanding experience, and you guys really did a nice job, both you and Central.
Yeah,
So-
definitely a good collaborative effort between both schools to make that happen. So, and like I said, a lot of the kids were at the tables because,
Yes.
when you need 100 people, a couple kids at each table, but a lot of the staff members, even sitting here with our FIAD department, participated in the athletic part or the physical education. So it was a good combination between staff members and kids.
Just congratulations on the wrestling and the girls' basketball, and then those Lady Huskies are a talented group, volleyball and basketball, and it's really awesome to see, and I can see a lot of junior Huskies feeling that, they're buying in, and it's kind of cool to see, so I'm glad
Yeah.
it's working that way.
Good, thanks. Yeah, success breeds success, so you get that going, and kids want to be part of it and are honored to be part of the Husky program.
Sue?
Thanks.
The basketball game that you're talking about, is that this Thursday?
No, the game it's the 30th. I believe that's a Tuesday, next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow. That's against Divine Savior, Holy Angel. And last time we played them was back and forth quite a bit, and we were ranked, I want to say, like number 9 at the time, and they were number 10 at the time. So they're very very strong team. So. Yeah.
Basically, could you just give us the time on the play-on performance again? Is it 7 or 7:30?
Yeah, 7:30. Yeah,
7:30?
it used to be 7 back, it just changed,
So
new
wanted to just
director,
ask.
new time, so.
Would like to
yeah.
attend.
So
And also-
Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 7:30, Saturday at 2. So 4 shows.
And could you possibly know what the musical is going to be and about when it's going to be, to give us a little
Aida?
preliminary information?
Elton John's Aida, and that is, I have it right here, April 12, 13, 14, and 19, 20, 21.
Very good, thank you very much.
Anyone else?
Yeah, there was some big discussion about which, the big thing there was that Zach and Scott teaming up on that again as the directors in the pit.
Should be powerful.
And it was just the amount of kids that they could get involved, and the pit's a lot large, so there's a lot more involvement in.
And a new production for the school, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
There's so many materials out there, it's nice to see them do something new,
Yeah.
to repeat.
Yep.
Thank you. You did an excellent job pinching
Yeah,
for this
thank you.
meeting.
Yeah,
We'll let 'em know.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot, fellas.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Matt.
You bet.
Great, so we'll go on to 7.2. This is the showcase for this evening, so this is not a school showcase. The board members are doing some curricular areas, so tonight is physical education. Let's welcome that team. We'll turn it over to Deidre.
Good evening, everyone. So I am going to introduce the team. Our curricular leads for physical education are Ryan Hammerneck and Brian Marks. This is Brian's second year doing it. Last year he split it with a different PE teacher. And it's one of those departments, as we look at those curricular leads, where I think this has really been essential to their department. They don't have somebody at the district office who has never worked in their area, helping them to guide curriculum and do those things. They're doing that work as the teacher team and as the leader of the teacher team. So I think that's really, you'll see a nice reflection in this group around the impact of some of that work with the curricular leads like we've talked about before. So with that said, I will turn it over to Ryan and Brian to introduce everyone else.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Ryan Hemrick, and I'm one of the proud leaders, working with Brian Marks this year. This is my first year as a co-curricular lead and my 17th year in the district. We want to thank and recognize our PE department that's here with us. We're well represented, and they're here tonight not because they were asked to, but because it's important to each of them. So we want to thank each of them for being here in attendance. And as we go through the presentation tonight, we'll have kind of a showcase on the big screen. That won't necessarily be our content, but what that will reflect is each of our elementary schools, our intermediate schools, and high schools working together in terms of our vertical planning, calibrating on our ICANN statements, and thinking about the big picture of how we get more people involved, which includes our children, adults, community, as we work together. The first item I'd like to start with, in the fall, here in October, was one of our big events to start. We started with the district run, and that's in October. For many of you know, there's a lot of history. It's an annual event. It was kind of a colder day. We had to cancel the first, and then we had a rain date scheduled. On the second rain date, which was the end of October, it actually started to hail. And if it were to rain, we probably would have canceled right away. But we were still proud to have more than 150 runners come out. We had more than 10 staff members to help, as well as Nathan Hale's cross-country team came out to kind of be the pacers of the run. Our next steps in looking forward is we want to evolve this to grow more participants, work with community sponsors. Our vision is obviously each participant would receive a T-shirt, a bottle of water, a granola bar, maybe a sport pack, and that would come through contribution and donation. We're proud to say this year we reduced our budget to simply the color printing with Dawn Nardi for each student to receive a certificate, and our top 20 runners in the 4 races that we had received a ribbon in terms of their finish. So again, we're very excited about kind of where we're at, and in terms of kind of the big picture to grow it to, ideally we want to double our numbers and connect with the community in terms of our sponsorships to grow this to even more of a community event that's completely supported by the contributions and generosity of our community and connecting with sponsorships. The second item I'd like to talk about is February coming up is the American Heart Disease Month. All of our schools, in a collaborative effort, are brainstorming ideas. There are fundraisers and there are participation in place in each of our schools, but we really want to grow that to kind of be one of our branding focal points. For example, in some of our intermediate schools, you'll see many of our schools have participated in the jump rope for heart. Our goal is to have each of our schools participate. We're proud to say that last year we raised for the American Heart Disease Association more than $15,000. So we really want to set some goals around that, connect more with our intermediate and high schools. You'll see very commonly in the intermediate schools, say on a Friday or each Friday in February, you might see lots of students in red shirts, kind of the red out day. You may see lots of morning announcements in each of our levels, elementary, intermediate, and high school. So we're really looking at, as a department, how we can grow this to kind of get the word out and really connect to this month, because it's a month long, and there's lots of opportunities that we have in terms of promoting that. Next, Brian's going to talk about the next steps in terms of AED and CPR.
On February 14th, some of our teachers from the high school are going to a CISA-sponsored AED and CPR training. And along with that, they are being provided free resources for not only them, but for the students as well, so that all students will be introduced to CPR and AED, which is now a state requirement that all students graduating have been introduced to CPR and AED. So we'll be going to that on February 14th. And then right now, in the process of our curriculum update, we're really focusing on personal health and fitness, and we're kind of working backwards. We want to know where the students are when they graduate. We want to basically say, this is where you're going to be when you graduate, and then we're working backwards from there. So where the middle schooler is going to be to get them ready to enter high school, we're pretty set there, and then our next step is where can we get our elementary school students to be to enter middle school. So we're kind of going from a top-down from that aspect. Looking at the finish line, then how are we going to get there? So we're really working on personal health and fitness. It's not the traditional just playing sports. We're letting students kind of choose some of the areas they want to get into. We're introducing them to a lot of things, and they find out what they like and what they'd like to kind of focus on. But they are being introduced to a variety of activities, and then they kind of choose their own path from there. We're really working on getting more students moving, especially before school. I know my school just got awarded a grant for the Morning Mile program. It's a program that gets students moving before school, and they get rewards, just little keychains and charms for every 5 miles they do, 10 miles, 50 miles. Everyone's included. It's completely free once we find a sponsor. I have a friend who's a trainer in Florida who started this. She found a national sponsor for us. Haven't been told who it is yet, but we're allowed to start. I got a free speaker system that's good for the outdoors, and all the equipment, all the rewards and everything for students, and they are all set to go. We're just waiting for the weather to be nice enough to start. We can do it in the snow, but not when it's 20 below or the next day is raining. So we're just waiting for a break in some kind of weather to start that program. But we also have some interest in some early bird activity programs, and then movement during lunch. We really want to focus on getting the students moving during lunch instead of just sitting around playing on technology, things like that. So we want to get them moving and active as much as possible. And then along with before school programs that we're starting, we're really focusing on encouraging breakfast for every single student. Research has shown that students that are fed well perform better academically. So we're really focusing on getting students those meals before school starts, and then making sure they know why they're eating. It's not just to fill your belly, but what does the nutrition aspect do, and how does that relate to your academic performance? How does it relate to your physical well-being? How important is breakfast to each individual student? And we want to make sure that every student is taking advantage of that breakfast in the morning so they can be best prepared for the day.
Upcoming in professional development as a department, we're going to start a book study, and it connects very well in terms of the district focus around restorative practices. Each of our department members, we have more than 20, we're really going to focus in on this in terms of taking a look at the classroom environment that's conducive to learning, and really to take a look at our approach. And as Brian had said, the goal and the importance of getting as many kids moving, we want to create that energy and that excitement that kids are looking forward to come into our class, and they want more of the class. And Evan and Scott will talk a little bit, about in terms of the high school elective offerings, and they'll reference a website that will connect very well to the advocacy, and really getting our information out to the community that's accessible through the website, that's accessible through each of the schools' website in terms of the elementary, intermediate, and high school, to really promote and really create that sense of urgency, and that students and families are very much informed and aware and looking forward to the programs and the offering and the excitement for learning that we're able to offer. As Brian had mentioned as well, connecting, at the school level, but as well as the district level, we're very mindful in terms of what's happening in physical education and how that connects to student achievement. The better that our kids are fed, the better that our kids are moving, the better that they feel about themselves, the more they're going to achieve in the classrooms. It's the teacher in front of the kids building that advocacy and enthusiasm. We really want to take a look at that, of how we move student learning for all kids, again, at the school, but on behalf of the district. In our professional development work, as Deidre had mentioned and Brian had mentioned, our focus is the vertical planning, to agree to disagree in what's best for kids. So we've taken a look at a lot in terms of each of our individual professional goals for the year and how we connect to each of the school improvements. There's some work to do there, but again, we are working through collaboration, having those uncomfortable conversations, and agreeing to disagree, to really get on the same page. And the PowerPoint that's in front of us, this is, once again, the work of each of our staff members. We didn't give them rules or, it's pretty much if, you had one slide and you needed to share it, what would you want to include to really promote your program? So this is a compliment to each of the staff members of the department to really get the word out, and this is, once again, good practice for us to include technology, but also to work on the advocacy piece. Evan's going to talk about what we're doing at Nathan Hale as it connects to advocacy and the next steps.
All right, so for the past couple of months here, we've been working on developing a website to really clearly state what physical education is about and provide some clarity around curriculum and the options that we have at Nathan Hale, because like we said, there's a lot of choice within the high school level of the West Allis West Milwaukee School District. And so this was, the idea is to help the community members learn about physical education, the importance of being physically active, and really just advocate for healthy behaviors as a whole. And so this is linked with the the Nathan Hale website. It's really easy to access. You just have to scroll down to the department and find physical education. I'm just going to click here on this, and you can see if I click on the About, it's going to tell me about physical education. It's going to tell me about what it is, and let me scroll down here. And common goals of what we've been working on as a district, quality PE growth programs, what it looks like, and then, of course, you have our teachers here. So that, like when we do like locker handouts and we do things like that, kids can reference this and learn a little bit about their teacher too, so that we can build relationships and so that we're just not teaching content all the time, so they can learn about us as well. And the curriculum, if I click on electives, it will show us what an elective is, and we link this to the work that has been done in the past around each program. So if I click on that, it's very easy to access, and so that parents and students can see what they're signing up for. So.
And the reason, Bob, of why we went through this is because sometimes kids get misplaced in classes that they didn't really know what it was about. It sounded interesting, but there wasn't really a detailed explanation of what they would be taking, and then they end up in class and they're like, ooh, this isn't anything that I want. So we wanted to have it something easy, even though our counselors do a very nice job of explaining things. They have all the subjects to cover, so they're not as in tune with what actually the class is offering as obviously we are. So we want to go about and make it a little bit easier for kids and parents and community members that, hey, if even someone that might be choosing to come to West Allis schools, that they can look and say, what kind of physical education program do they have? What do they offer? What's the difference between here and then in Wauwatosa or someplace else? And just thought being able to get the word out would help people make the right choices and right decisions, and hopefully make the experience of the students a better experience for them.
And in closing here, I just to reiterate the point of getting the word out, we have resources online here, articles that we found interesting, whether it be TED Talk or an article about taking brain breaks. This article right here is about brain breaks and sitting in class and listening to a lecture or not being engaged all the time can take a toll on you, and so getting the students active, and these are good resources for really any teacher to use, and we have parent links also. So just want to again advocate for the importance of healthy behaviors.
Questions by board members? Noah?
First of all, thank you, because this is a very, very important part of our children's education. Physical education is something that, when I was growing up, was almost the butt of a lot of jokes, like how could you get out of doing this, that, or the other when you're going to school? Well, I got a doctor's note that, obviously I just wrote on my way into school this morning. But, you know, in today's society, it's a very big deal. I mean, these habits start when they're kids. And obviously, a lot of it happens at home, too, but it's important that we're, you know, emphasizing how important it is to be moving and be active and finding something that will get that individual student interested in being active, because those things, when they find that, they'll continue doing that on their own. They won't need the constant badgering that some kids might have to do instead of sitting on the couch and playing video games all day. So, I mean, this is really great. I really like the website. You know, that does, you know, something that could set us apart from our districts, to have that, you know, in-depth information about what we offer here in the district, which is great. One thing I wondered about, you know, there's kind of this mentality about everyone's a winner, right? So there's a participation trophy for everything that we do, and there's no losing. But, you know, that's not a reality in life. So, you know, can you talk a little bit about, like, how you approach that within your physical education when you're doing competition? There are people who are going to be better than others, and that comes from, you know, the effort that is put in. And sometimes it's genetic, but a lot of times it's, you know, practicing and doing things over and over again and making sure that you're doing everything you can to succeed. With understanding you might not always succeed, and that's okay.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up, is that, you know, you had talked about the past, and Fayette's kind of the butt of the jokes, and, you know, oh my God, what can I do to get out of it? And, you know, if you weren't an athlete, the last place you'd ever want to go would be Fayette class, because it was terrible. You know, we, at Nathan Hale High School, and I think in the district in general, we look more at physical education of not so much as whether they learn how to dribble a basketball or throw a football. It is about lifelong skills, and one of those lifelong skills is that, you know, you're going to fail a lot more than you're ever going to succeed, but failure leads to success, and you need to learn how to fail in the right manner. So we do have competitive games, and we do have a competitive curriculum, but with the understanding that we explain the facts that you are going to, you know, not succeed at this certain point, but what can you do to help it improve later on? And we want to teach kids of how to, once you get knocked down, get back up again. When we start the whole, whatever unit you're talking about, you know, we do lead up things to see where people are at, not only in their social skills, but their physical skills. And then we use our professional experience and we balance those out, so that you do not have the same kid on a team that, with another person who isn't very good in a sport and just getting beat every single time. We work on trying to give everybody success. Now, there may be some students that may never win a championship throughout, but we want to teach them that that's okay, because it's the main issue is that you've gotten better and that you know how to deal with so-called failure. So that's really what we're looking at. It's really not, you know, people always say, well, what does it matter if they know how to dribble a basketball? You're absolutely right. You're absolutely, in my opinion, I think that's a big deal of why you know how to dribble a basketball. But it's not so much the dribbling aspect of it, it's what can that sport of basketball help you out in later in life? You may meet somebody that is huge into basketball, or you're in a business situation and someone's talking about a sport. If you have some background knowledge, you tend to be able to socialize better. And let's face it, in today's society, with the handheld computers and things like that, kids struggle with face-to-face contact, with being able to talk to somebody and carry on. You know, someone asks me a question and I'm not really knowing about that, but how do I work around it? And that's what we're trying to improve. Also with the cardiovascular, yes, we want them moving, we want them up and down. But that's really the basis of what we're trying to do, is to get them to be productive citizens when they go out, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's in college, whether it's in the business world, whether it's within our classroom at this point, along with improving their cardiovascular endurance and things like that. So I don't know if that completely answered your question. I mean, I hope I hit some points for you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I want to hear. I mean, it's important to instill, obviously, the perseverance of kids. You know, they're going to run into challenges in their life, you know, and it's going to start very early, and it's not going to stop. So, you know, for a while, there seemed to be that kind of mentality. We want to make sure everyone feels like they've won or they've achieved whatever they wanted to achieve, and that's just, it isn't realistic in the long term. It is important to build confidence and things like that, and I think by spreading out talent and things so that you're making you have even teams, that's a good way of doing that. But it's most important, again, to when you get knocked down, what do you do? Do you stay down or do you get back up? And I think that was maybe lost somewhat in some of the generations that were in the most recent, and I think we're kind of realizing now that we have to kind of reinforce, like, yeah, you're going to fail, that's okay.
Absolutely.
What do you do after that failure, or you
And
don't
we do
win,
give-
whatever you want to call it?
You know, we've built big trophies for champions, and then I'll just share a little experience with you, is that I had a senior last year. It was a girl, had her all 4 years, she was in Fayette all the time, and had never had won one. And I know she was being a little overly dramatic, but they won the championship, and they get the hoisted trophy, get their picture, and put it on Twitter and stuff like that. And you know, she made the comment, she said, you know, this is the greatest day in my life since I've been adopted, for God's sakes. You know, she said she was that excited that she got to hold the trophy. So it may have taken them 4 years. Some of them may never get there, but we do add, but the participatory ribbons.
Right.
If you knew me at all, and I know some people do, I'm not big on participatory, because, you know, what makes a person, you know, confident, something they've earned. And we try to instill that in kids, that if they get something, they've earned it, and they should be darn proud of themselves.
Thank you.
Sue? Dan, Dan's next.
Thank you. I just want to say, I'm sorry?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say that out of my years sitting on this board, seeing everything come together, that it's come together this evening, you're working as a team, you're making connections, and it's all about kids and parents and community. And, you know, you're finding the key to do the motivation for these kids, and I'm seeing it. And I'm also seeing the motivation that you're giving yourselves, and you're giving teachers. It can be done. I was gonna say, where do I sign up? Because this is fantastic from what I've seen. And
We'll take you.
I just.
You look a competitive guy, we'll take you.
Those are years ago, but it's refreshing to see how you're taking a piece of clay and molding it into something along with the individual, that they're gonna walk out of that class or PE session saying, I am somebody. I can get this. It's gonna take a little time, but I can do it. It's great to see, and like I said, you've made the connection. There used to be a little bit of a gap that was between physical education and teaching, and you're all teachers. But you put that link together tonight and showed me that it's working. And like I made a comment prior to you all sitting down, you all came in with smiles, and I know it's all long days for you. It's for everybody, it's long days. But I really appreciate your hard work, and I appreciate all your dedication. Thank you very much.
Thank you, we appreciate you having us. I mean, I've been here 20 years, and I may have not seen everything, but I don't ever recall having a designated board meeting for physical education.
Well, I think you've shown us.
That's outstanding. I mean,
It's outstanding.
It really is. We appreciate it. Trust us.
Sue?
Well, you talked about failure, and I was just commenting to note that your note about failure and Andy's failure in basketball is the most prized note that he has. But that's not why I was, but that's how important it is. But you've heard that story. I do have a question. Being the sexist that I am, you have the physical fitness room or the workout room or whatever you call that room, and it is mostly filled with boys. It's very rarely are girls, and it was built, actually it was built to be for the community also. But we accept the fact that there's no time for the community. But I don't accept that you don't have time for, or to fully encourage girls to be able to use that fitness room. What would you suggest on how you could make that a more comfortable place for our girls to work out?
Well,
I'll take this one.
Yeah.
I'm new to the district, however, I'm in after school and before school every morning exercising, lifting, whether it be in the weight room or cardio room. And I'll just make it known right now, I will open that up for any girl, any guy that wants to go work out. Now, with that being said, with the Lifetime Fitness classes and the Advanced Lifetime Fitness classes at Nathan Hale, I teach, and we have Fitness Wednesdays and where we do some cardiovascular different activities. And once in a while, we'll take them up there, and they really enjoy it. And we'll have a cardio unit where we utilize that equipment. And so what I found is increasing kids are finding more enjoyment in using the equipment, and so they're going to be more likely to use that equipment, say, after school or before school. And so it's just setting the building blocks in order for that to happen. It can't just happen overnight. These kids need to know the benefits and understand why they are doing something. They're not going to just get on a treadmill and run, most of them. So
We're working on it. And if you look at his Lifetime Fitness class, the majority of it are females. Strength through fitness that Mr. Arid and Mr. Heller teach. Some years there's a little bit more, but it's kind of the stereotype from females where they feel that the weight room, and we're trying to break through that. Like you said, it's not going to happen overnight. It's nothing, if it looks that way to the public, it's nothing that our district is saying, please don't come in here. We open it up, we want them in. It's a work in progress.
And that's why
we're aware of it, and we're trying to change it.
Right, and that's why we're trying to promote the physical literacy behind physical education and making sure that our students understand these important concepts. So.
Stephanie?
So as somebody who competes in strongman competitions and who goes to the gym on a regular basis, one of the biggest obstacles you see for women being in a weight room is that there's no other women there. And I look around here, and other than Ms. Cardwell, who's behind the podium, and I can't actually see her, but I know she's there. There's not a lot of female representation on the staff and whatnot. So amongst your own buildings, what are you doing to encourage maybe additional staff members to come? Because if I'm a freshman, sophomore, junior girl, and I'm interested in weightlifting, I'm interested in fitness, but I don't see anybody who looks like me in that room. I don't see anybody who can help teach me that way, because a woman's needs are different than a man's, and
Absolutely.
you know, I mean, I work with a female trainer, and there's a very specific reason for that. So to encourage additional adult women to be in the room too, to help encourage the students to feel comfortable.
And I can speak a little bit further to that. Over the years, you know, in the way that the curriculum is designed and being in many of the weight rooms, is the exposure to as many, you know, activities and exercises as possible. We'll concentrate on muscular strength, but as well as muscular endurance, meaning that, you know, I can think of Planet Fitness, kind of new model. You know, they have big signs and they'll kick people out because there's no grunting and there's no, you know, tank tops and these types of things. So really, you know, it's the curriculum planning and kind of that unit designed to that exposure. For example, at West Milwaukee, Mrs. O'Brien is opening an after-school club. The way that our clubs are designed, and this was one of our agenda points, is try to increase the activities in club design. Because you know, based on the structure or the offering, we're gonna promote you know, balanced participation, if you will. Over the years, I believe it's probably its 10th or 11th year, the Lifetime Fitness curriculum offering is more of, you know, building advocacy over time. So, you know, limited running for miles per se, the balance of power walking, pedometers, you know, taking a look at balanced nutrition is far more appealing, and it's an elective course that we've really seen an acceleration in terms of males and females, predominantly females that will sign up for that course. In its first year, the goal at West Dallas Central, once again, it was about 10 years ago, our goal was to have one section offering and it exceeded 40 students. At the time, Mrs. Dobson had taught the class. We opened a second section, and if there was 50 kids, I would say 40 to 45 were female students. Since then, in the high school, that course offering has really accelerated, and students you know, can work for credit in the elective, but also how it's evolved towards credits for graduation. Brian has a pretty good quote that I want him to repeat. I've heard him say what our goal is as it relates to fitness clubs over the years. We'll give you a perspective and kind of the direction we want to go as well.
I used to be the state president for the Wisconsin Association of Health and Physical Fitness, and we'd go around and talk to independent trainers, physical fitness trainers at gyms, and we tell them what are the challenges you have, and this is what we're trying to do. And the trainers said, they looked at our program and said, if you do what you're planning on doing, you're going to put us out of business. And that's what we're kind of looking to do. We want to make sure that every student leaves able to be their own trainer, that they don't need someone to be a personal trainer for them. maybe for motivation, but they don't need to know how to use this piece of equipment and that piece of equipment. They should be able to know what's best for them, what can they do to improve their muscular strength, muscular endurance, cardiovascular fitness, all of those things, and then weave their nutrition into that. So not that we're looking to put anyone out of business, but if we can put trainers out of business because our students have that knowledge, that's kind of our goal.
I think that's fantastic because it's a whole different approach to Phi Ed. I mean, it's not the teaching necessarily the rules of the game, you know, the lifestyle is what we're promoting, and that kind of really aligns with kind of what we're doing, what everything we're aligning to, our mission statement, you know, and community, and it's all feels very cohesive in kind of what the vision, I think, is, and it's really excellent to see that's the direction we're going. I mean, yeah, I like what you said about, you know, the knowledge of the sports and being able to socialize, which really is important, and there's so many valuable things about athletics and how it parallels life and all that sort of stuff, but to have that basic knowledge, but the life, health experience and nutrition and taking it to a different level in that regards, I think is really fantastic. And the website connecting that technology to these kids, which are all about technology, is really cool. And, you know, as we try to draw people into the district and keep people in the district, that's very important. So I love how everything is starting to line up. It really is really cool to see, so thanks.
Anyone else? Oh, Heather.
I just wanted to mention one thing, the district run. Did you ever visit the Wisconsin PTA website? Because in August, September, they offer grants for healthy lifestyles and things like that, and they're usually pretty significant. So, and then our own PTA here, the council has a health and safety chairperson, someone you might want to connect with. And then, do they still do Hoops for Hearts at the intermediate level, or is it all just Jump Rope for Heart now?
Hoops for Heart is officially the middle school and high school part of the Jump Rope for Heart. Middle schools, they have their choice on which one they want to do, and then mostly the high schools, if they participate, it's a Hoops for Heart, although they've been kind of moving more towards a Red Out because it's easier for students to get more involved that way. They don't have to be interested in basketball, they can just do whatever activity they want and wear their red shirts, and that's kind of where they're kind of pushing students more towards that area.
Have you tried to partner with the sports teams at all in raising money there? Especially our teams are doing so fantastic at our high schools. Maybe get them to join in, because some of those kids don't take gym because they take it on the side, or they do independent, so they don't have that same experience.
Well, I know that the basketball teams at Hale, at least they had in the past, I believe, or this year, they do kind of Jimmy V games. Jimmy Valvano died from cancer, and that goes all to the American Heart Association also. So it may not be the Hoops for Heart or that, but it is during February here, during this time, where they do a fundraiser game where the money that they bring in at the door, part of that goes to that. So I don't know if I know we've never looked to combine it. We may. That's a great suggestion. That was a fantastic suggestion for the run.
Yep.
But I know they do something like that in that sense.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so very much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Right. So, excuse me, we'll keep moving. In 7.3, the legislative update. Just a couple things. Senate Bill 329, this is a bill that would authorize the Department of Public Instruction to award grants for professional development trainings and character education. So this is one we'll pay attention to because we do a lot of that work already. This has been referred to the Joint Committee on Finance at this point. And then there's Senate Bill 725, which is paired with Assembly Bill 830. These bills create an educational savings account program for gifted and talented pupils. So this one's interesting. Beginning in the 1890 school year, the bill requires the Department of Public Instruction to award $1,000 scholarships to certain gifted and talented pupils and to credit the scholarships to individual accounts established and maintained by DPI. So the pupils that are eligible have to be enrolled in a public school, including independent charter, private school, participating in a parental choice program, or the Special Needs Scholarship Program. The pupil has to be identified as a gifted and talented pupil, and then the pupil satisfies the income eligibility criteria under federal law for a free or reduced price lunch. So that one's interesting to me because I think it's going to really start to call our attention more to, so, underserved, we talk about closing achievement gaps. So, kids that receive free and reduced lunch or come from high poverty families are usually underrepresented and gifted and talented. But talent is spread out evenly in the human system, right? So it's spread out evenly, so we should see even representation of all kinds of kids. So I think this is going to really kind of force some of those conversations and create opportunity in new ways. And there's nothing at the federal since our last meeting. Then a couple of congratulatory resolutions. So first, Cecilia Santiago at Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate School. Cecilia was named the winner of the Milwaukee Youth Symphony Orchestra's Concerto Competition for the 3rd consecutive year. She is the 2018 Philharmonia winner and the Metropolitan Honorable Mention on the viola. She will be the featured soloist with MISO, Milwaukee Youth Symphony Orchestra, Philharmonia at the Milwaukee Youth Symphony Orchestra Symphonic Celebrations Concert on Sunday, May 20th, 2018 at 6 p.m. at Shattuck Music Center Auditorium on the Carroll University campus in Waukesha. So we're really proud of Cecilia. Devin Pollock, Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate School. Devin was named honorable mention in the Sinfonios Concerto competition this past weekend. And then the Department of Public Instruction has officially declared this week as Adult School Crossing Guard Recognition Week in Wisconsin. We do have a proclamation from DPI. I'm not going to read that, but we'll include it with the official record of the board meeting, and we just want to encourage everybody to, as you see crossing guards this week, to thank them for the work they do, especially in the kind of odd weather shifts we've been having, and tonight, tomorrow morning is probably not much better. So we really appreciate the people that are helping kids be safe when they come and go from school. And then a couple quick updates. In public comments from our January 8th meeting, that was already responded to because it was a similar comment from the previous meeting. So there's nothing more to add there. On January 15th, we had a great day of professional development. I just wanted to take a moment to thank Deidre and Adam and the whole team that helps put all of that together, including all of the teachers and administrators that are presenters. This is really our own expertise being shared with one another. That's, I think, a very interesting model that the board's been introduced to, but teachers signed up to be in a cohort. So you're kind of studying the same thing for 3 sessions with the same group of colleagues. So you get to come back and talk about, well, what did you try? What did you try? Well, how did that go? You did that, you did it a little bit differently. So we're trying to encourage the learning together and not have kind of one and done professional development. And that really was Deidre's vision that kind of led to that. But it was a fun day for me to just walk the halls at Nathan Hale and dip in and out of sessions and see teacher after teacher presenting to colleagues. So it was, I think, a great day for us. And we'll share through board updates some of the direct feedback, because we do collect survey information about how the teachers are experiencing all of that. A number of you went to the state education convention, so I followed some of the innovation conversations and also the redesigning ready or redefining ready conversation. You're going to start to hear more and more about this. So that the state next year is requiring 5 new readiness indicators that school districts are going to start to track. And we've been having the internal conversations tied to the strategic plan about creating a profile of the West Allis, West Milwaukee graduate. And that's more than an ACT score, although ACT scores are important. So just as an example, one of the indicators, and I think it fits beautifully with some of the conversation from the physical education presentation, one of the indicators of readiness that a lot of districts are starting to figure out how do we adopt, require, engage more kids is being involved in high school in 2 or more organized activities a year. That's a really important readiness indicator, because what kids learn there are the employability skills, right? So you think about basketball, or you think about any of the sports, you think about music, you think about any of those things, the transferable skills are, first of all, those are all kinds of performance things that you have to go to, right? And you have to show up on time, right? We hear from employers all the time, just give me somebody that can show up on time, we'll do the rest. Well, organized activities require that, right? You have to know what you're there to do, right? So you've got to have done your practice, your homework, you've got to be ready for it. And in a lot of those, you have to show up even in the right uniform, right? You gotta have the right clothes on to show up for work. And there's more than just the organized activities, but we're engaging in some of those conversations with other districts in the area, and you'll hear more about kind of the redefining or redesigning readiness as that comes forward, and Sue's nodding along because she went to that session.
Yes, I did.
This has been built into PI 26 with DPI. I was going to do an update on this at this meeting on our recent city meeting, but that was canceled. Jeff and I showed up where Suzette was in kind of midstream trying to text us and email us, and we walked into the city hall and there was no meeting. So I have nothing to add there. I am currently scheduled to go out and observe a staff meeting in every building. This is part of the principal evaluation process. So last year we used all of the school showcase presentations as the formal observation, but we don't have all the schools this year. So I'm going to do this instead, so all of those are getting scheduled, and I'll be out in buildings. And then along with that, Deidre and I are going to do another round like we do at the beginning of the year, where we visited all schools and do kind of, okay, here's the focus for the year, and kind of answer any questions. So we're going to do another one of those that'll be briefer in terms of the update and more interested in kind of the feedback or listening session. And what we want to explore is in the most recent employee engagement survey with Studer, they added 3 new questions about communication. And so one of them is two-way communication. And so what we're interested in is sharing, okay, here's the data from these 3 items on the survey. So what does that look like? What does that mean? If we're going to get better at that. So this is, Melissa was giving us some tips on, so it's really the question, if you were to rate that a 5, what would that look like to you? What would the experience of two-way communication be? So we're going to be doing some rounds in schools in the coming months. And then we'll update the board kind of in what we've learned from those listening sessions as we go forward. So that is my update, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 8, the President's Report. I did receive a thank you card from the West Allis West Milwaukee Monogram Organization. They are a community group that provides 6 $1,000 scholarships to Hale and 6 $1,000 scholarships to Central. Dear Monogram members and dear members of the West Allis West Milwaukee School Board, on Wednesday, December 20th, under the direction of Mr. Zach Beeksma, a segment of high school choral singers performed for our civic organization. The performance was excellent. Both the direction and the singing are things that our school district and our community can be proud of. Dan Gaynor, the club president. I know not everybody had a chance to attend the state convention. I did. And the sessions that are numbered here are ones that I have hard copies of what was presented. So I'm going to pass this down, and if there's something that tickles your fancy, let Suzette know, and she can get copies of you for that. So at least you're not left out of what was going on because you had to work or whatever. And then if you look at our calendar, following tonight's meeting, we have a communications and public relations workshop with a neighborhood schools update, learning and technology workshop, the AGR update, and immediately following that, we have a closed session meeting. And our next meeting is regular meeting is on Monday, February 12th. Our regular Board of Education meeting, Monday, February 19th. We have a student services workshop, and that will be with special education, school psychologists, counselors, social workers, and the nursing service. And then on Monday, February 26th at 6 p.m., we have the regular Board of Education meeting, followed by the business services workshop. And just as a note for people that may be watching at home on television, our regular Board of Education meetings are open to the public and start at 6 o'clock. Our workshops are open to the public, however, they are not televised, and those are also beginning at 6 o'clock, but you are more than welcome to attend. Anything going on in the community from board members that you would like to share? No?
We talked about the play this weekend, but that's...
We'll move on to the consent agenda. We have 3 items. 9.1, the approval of minutes of the January 8th board meeting and the January 15th work session. 9.2, the employment summary and supplemental contracts, and 9.3, the financial summary. Would any board member like any of those separated out? Seeing none, we could take those as a group. I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or last-minute comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We'll move on to action items. We have 2 this evening. First one is 10.1, the approved number of open enrollment seats available for the 18-19 school year. This is Mr. Weaver, and it kind of dates back to our workshop from last week.
So just a brief introduction, and for those that are watching, and so the school boards in Wisconsin are required annually to approve the number of open enrollment seats that will be available the following school year at a January meeting. And so we did a workshop most recently about the process we use in our policy, the formula we use. Tonight you'll see different numbers, right? So we talked about their best projections a couple weeks ago, knowing that was going to change between that meeting and the final meeting. So just so you're reminded that, these are now tighter projections based on kind of the enrollment patterns we're seeing, and you're ready to explain all of that.
Yeah, it's the exact same process we went, It's the same process we went through 2 weeks ago at the workshop. So current students that are enrolled in our district, we took after second Friday in January. We then determined how many sections were needed, and then from there, we allocated how many open enrollment seats would be available, which would still leave us room for any students that may move into the district. Within those numbers that you see, so the total is 128 students, and we have listed out each grade level. Within those numbers are the special education allocations, and if you have questions on how those were calculated, that is why Ms. Ramer's here. But again, it's a similar process. Which students do we have in the current district with special education needs? How many case managers do we need to cover those students? And then what spots are available from there?
And
Those seats, just to be clear, those are not in addition to the 128 seats. So those are if some of the students who made an application for open enrollment within those 128 seats. So if we don't have any seats available at that grade level and it's a student with a special need who applies, well, we don't make a seat because we had room in the special ed numbers at that grade level. No?
Are those special education applications given precedence? Is there any sort of preference given to those over a non-special education seat?
No, we follow the same process we do for everybody else. So you use the same procedure to look at applications, and then if that application meets the criteria. So if in the order of applications, we're looking at application number 40, and application number 40 then, okay, well, let's look at number 40. It's for an 8th grade seat. We have an 8th grade seat available. Oh, whoop, okay, that's a student with a special need. Then we go to those calculations and make sure that it fits within that, and if all those things line up, then that student gets a seat. But it is not that we look at those applications differently. That just is an added factor that we consider in that application when we follow the process we do for everyone else.
So another thing I think, just again for public understanding, is so we're recommending that the board approves a total of 128 seats that would be available next year for new open enrollment students. But this will represent a net reduction overall in the number of open enrollment students in the district, right? We have more than 130 12th grade open enrollment students this year. And we also know that of the 128 seats, we don't fill them all, right? We know in the earlier grades, we tend to fill them all, and then in the transition years, so that would be 6th grade and 9th grade. But 2nd grade, a 3rd grade seat's very unlikely to be filled. The 4th grade seat's probably unlikely to be filled. So this will represent overall a net reduction in the number of open enrollment students.
Questions? Then we need a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Thank you. It's been seconded. Moved and seconded to approve the administration's recommendation. Last minute questions, comments? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. That passes. We'll move on to 10.2, the revised 2018-19 school calendar.
So let me do some introduction here before we get into the conversation around it. So this is in front of the board this evening because we, after the board approved the 18-19 school calendar, we recognized that we had put Martin Luther King Jr. holiday in the wrong place. And so because the board took action on the calendar, we needed to bring this back and correct it. And it also adjusts some of the other days around the end of semesters and making sure we had the right number of days in each quarter and trying to balance the semester. So a couple other things shifted in and around kind of the Martin Luther King date in January. But because we brought this back, it's gathered some attention regarding the spring break week, which school calendars always do. It's every school calendar I ever worked on. It's always about spring break. And so I need to clarify a couple of things I don't think are well understood. Is the effort in CESA 1 was to try to get some alignment. And in a perfect world, I'd love to have all of the school districts in the area aligned. That's probably impossible, I think very, very unlikely. And it's not true that we are the only school district in CISA 1 that doesn't have the last week of March. MPS has not published their calendar yet for next year, and it's likely they stay with the Easter holiday. Kenosha stays with the Easter holiday. So the largest districts in CISA 1, impacting the most number of kids and families, aren't aligned to the common spring break. Nor are charter schools, private schools, independent schools, parochial schools, choice schools, right? So this idea that everybody's doing the exact same thing, I don't think is accurate. When we surveyed parents, it was clear that most parents preferred the first week of spring break. That made a choice. Most were no preference. But the way we ended up with the first week of April, and we talked about this when the board first approved the calendar, was really the challenge of trying to honor kind of what parents have said, but also honor what we've implemented this year is we don't have school on days where we have voting. And that's been really well received, in particular by principals. But we've had parents that, on days when there's voting, keep their kids home from school. So it's been well received, and I think it's just better all around for kids, for staff, even for the public that comes into buildings that are voting. It's just better. So the dilemma with the calendar is April 2nd is, for next year, is a polling day, or voting day, right?
Yes.
If we were to have spring break the last week of March, that means kids come back for one day and then they're off again. So the likelihood of us having a good school day on that Monday, April 1st, is pretty low. Now, we could have simply extended spring break to have it go the first week of, the last week of March, and then the first couple days of April. That covers the the voting day. But parents were very supportive of a more common spring break if it included a long weekend around Easter. And in order for us to have enough instructional days, which really means instructional hours, we wouldn't be able to have the long weekend around Easter. So that's the trade-off in the choices that, why we've built the calendar the way we have. I think, the calendar in the future, spring break likely fluctuates between the last week of March, first week of April, depending on how the calendar plays out and which week voting lands in, compared to where we want to put spring break. So the last thing I'll address is just some of the concerns about kind of the communication loop around this. And it's true we surveyed parents like most of the area districts. We didn't survey teachers. It hasn't been a practice here in the past, and we've worked with the Teachers Association in terms of our communication and feedback, and there's always opportunities to improve those things, but I wanted to explain the logic behind working with the Teachers Association, and knowing that not every single teacher is a member, but every year in the state of Wisconsin, since Act 10, if teachers' unions want to continue to be a union, they have to go through a recertification process, right? They have to vote. And this district overwhelmingly supports recertification, right? So there were, of the teachers, we have just under 700 now, 623 teachers voted, and 615 supported recertification. So to me, the logic is, well, that's the place you go to if you want to get feedback from teachers. So we've worked directly with the Teachers Association on feedback around the calendar. And there are other things we can do. And certainly we can, and that's a little bit what I said earlier, part of Deidre and I exploring these 3 items from the employee engagement surveys to get a better understanding of what two-way communication looks like. But I did want to share with the board and the public that's listening just kind of the logic behind how we pursued these things to try to get feedback from parents, feedback from teachers, and then why spring break is landing where it is. But ultimately, the action we're asking you to take is to fix the mistake we made around Martin Luther King. Otherwise, I would have never had to say all of that.
Motion to approve?
I actually have some things I wanted to say.
That would be during discussion.
During discussion, do motion to approve. Move to approve.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Now discussion. No.
I apologize. So, I had some concerns around the survey, which something you addressed regarding who got it and who didn't get it, and the Teacher Association being the one that was polled. My concern also extends beyond just teachers. We have other people who work in our district this will affect. obviously, as well, and they obviously had no voice in this at all. So when this was put forward on November 13th for our approval, I voiced a concern about this, the week that we were choosing, because originally how it was couched to us for the reason for the whole purpose of it was that we were going to have a consistent spring break with other area districts, and that's why we were looking to change it. So I asked, well, what are other districts doing? And you had said that there were quite a few that were picking the last week in March, but that the ones that had polling going on in their schools, they were picking the first week in April. And because of that, that swayed me enough to be able to support that decision. But it turns out that isn't true. I mean, from what I've been able to find is that there's only one district that has it the first week in April, and that's us. So in my opinion, we've moved backwards. If we would have stayed where we were, we at least would have been in common with some districts. The vast majority of districts are picking the last week in March. Some of those districts do have polling in their schools, and some of them are still having people in schools, and I'm not saying, I'm not in favor of that. I think it's good to not have students in school on those polling days. But I think there's other creative solutions that we could have looked into if this was really going to be the main impetus for selecting the first week in April. The survey clearly said, do you want to have a consistent week-long spring break? That was the main impetus for that. And that was very much what people were in favor of. We do not have a consistent week-long spring break. We are completely inconsistent. We are now on an island by ourselves, and no one else has the same spring break as us. And the fact that we've done this is kind of astounding to me, because that was the exact opposite of the point of even looking at it in the first place. So, I really think that we should revisit this and look at other possibilities we can do. The second question about having a long Easter break does have an increase in people who are supportive of it, but it does say and or Monday and Friday. It doesn't have to be both. It could be one or the other, and that we could get one day back by doing that. And there are additional, there's a date in October, which is just a day off. It's listed as a fall break. It's one day, so I'm not sure what fall break that is, but that could be daily. We could pull in if we wanted to extend that spring break from the last week in March through that Tuesday in April, so we wouldn't lose our days that are required for instruction, but still be able to honor our not having kids in school on election days, but additionally be able to honor what clearly the parents wanted to do, and from what communication that I've been able to find, a lot of teachers who work and probably other EAs, secretaries, custodians who work in our district who are also being affected by this. We've now essentially completely removed that possibility for them. And this goes beyond this. This affects class trips and things like that are also planned around spring break with other districts, because we don't have enough participation in our own school. Now maybe those class trips can't happen, or they have to happen at a different time, or if they happen during the summer, or to a different place, or at a greater expense. So there's a lot of things I think that are brought down because of this decision that was made. I understand because of where the election date falls, but I think there was other solutions that we could do. And I certainly, if I had known that we were the only district in the first week of April to be spring break, I wouldn't have been in favor of that calendar. Like, I thought that was not true. And I mean, there's some districts that have not decided the calendars yet. MPS actually voted on their calendar for the 2018-19 in 2016, so they do have a spring break there the week before Easter, though. And Kenosha does 2 years. Some school districts do 2 years at a time, but there's some that just haven't voted on it yet. So there's about 7 anyways in the area that I've looked at that don't have a calendar posted, which they could align with the first week in April. But considering we have 16 school districts right now that have confirmed that the last week in March is going to be their spring break, and the fact that we're the only ones that are going to be the first week of April, I really would like to see us maybe reconsider this and look at other options.
Okay, so a couple thoughts. Again, MPS, which serves the vast majority of children in southeastern Wisconsin, does not have that spring break. We serve a lot of students that live in MPS, so I could make the argument that we should stick with the MPS spring break, right, out of courtesy and respect for those families.
Yeah.
So again, these are all kind of balancing and trade-offs, so we're not the only one. That's just not factual. So I think that's important to be said. The other thing, and we can look at all of this going forward. I think for next year, we can, maybe we do more work directly with the board to look at the calendar before it comes around for approval. But the calendar as it is right now has already been approved. It's already been published. families have already started making plans, right? So by considering a change in the spring break now, you're going to have many, many more concerns I would, I think, reasonably expect than trying to make a change now, because we've already approved it and published it.
Any other discussion?
Just kind of from the standpoint of, I always like to look at things from the employment retention standpoint, and I do think that it's important going forward to try to line up with CISA as much as possible, because I would hate to see us lose teachers to other districts just because they want to make sure that they are off when their family's off, and so forth. So I think as much as possible, yes, that's something that we should look at going forward. I understand the issues with potentially looking at something like this again now, but I think that is important to note going forward.
Any other discussion? Pat?
I do. I think it is going to be troublesome because the calendar is published, and we've already acted on this. And Noah brings up a good point. I think we did think that the way this was going to be worked out is that we would have more consistency than we wound up having. I would hope that in future years, as you look at this, my concern about spring break versus Easter is that there is such a long period of time between January and April that I'm not bound by the last week in March. I'd rather see it second or third week, to be quite honest. And that's the way a lot of colleges do it too. Now, granted, we don't align with colleges because that's not our sector to deal with in a coordinating basis. But at the same time, it's just that very, very long time between, and that's the reason for it. And then we have had conversation that has given the thought to implementing a long weekend around Easter with Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. So I think we're getting closer to that. There's a lot of things we accomplished with this calendar, especially around the Labor Day weekend debacle we had from last year to this year. Finally got ourselves to a better place. The calendar is never perfect. It's always something that is argued about. It's been a good communication tool between the board and the teachers over the years, and I would not want to lose that. And that's one of the things that is a concern to me. Past Act 10, the membership has gone down significantly, and I think it's important to all the schools, to all the principals, that they utilize faculty meetings for the purpose of building issues as much as it is curricular issues, so that there is constant conversation about the things that are going on in our district through them, and not just relying upon our union meetings to get the word out to teachers. So I very reluctantly support this because I truly believe that it should be much earlier in March, and we should be still fighting for the idea of a 4-day weekend surrounding April for the benefit of students getting a little better opportunity at student achievement.
Any other comments? Noah?
I just want to comment, Pat, we do have a 4-day weekend over Easter. That's what was approved in the calendar for this next year. So that is included in, and that was Dr. Luxon was talking about if we extended it.
You're correct. It's this year that's April 1st. You're correct.
Yeah.
I agree with that, yes,
So,
correct.
and the other thing I just wanted to reiterate, like, the survey that we took, we're basically selecting a week that is exactly opposite from what the vast majority of people wanted.
I get that.
We're picking the exact opposite of what they wanted, and that is just, it harkens back to the communication issues that this district, that has plagued this district in the past. And I don't want to see that continue. Some of the questions on that survey probably were up to interpretation. Some people might thought consistent meant consistent within districts. Some might have thought consistent with CISA 1. Some might have thought consistent with what happened in the past, meaning following Easter. So those are all things that I think we really need to think about before we put a survey like that out, so that when people are answering it, they feel confident in the responses that they're giving. Because I have heard some feedback to that regard as well, that I thought that meant something else. And I would have picked something differently if I had realized that was what that meant. So something else that maybe we keep in mind for this. I'm going to vote for the revision because the revision is for something that makes sense, but I'm not for where the spring break is lying.
Dan, you had your hand up?
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. I have to agree with Pat in regards to what she said in regards to communication with principals and with teachers. I think it's very important that the board realizes as a group that any communications that go out to a teacher, or if it does go out to a community, that it's taken a look by the superintendent as well as the president to make sure that the wording is correct and make sure that the communication is positive to our community as teachers as well. I think that's extremely important to me. So I don't have any issues as far as taking a look at it in the future. I think what we've done as a board is we have agreed upon what's going to be taking place, leaving it open that we are also going to be communicating in the near future how it's done and who does it. Again, I would have to say, for me, that's very important as to who does it and how it's presented.
I want some clarification. You keep saying that that this is not what the people supported, but the question right here is, if the region would move to a long, consistent spring break, would you prefer the last full week of March or the first full week of April? 18.6 said the last week of March, 33.9 said the first week of April, and 47.5 had no preference. So we are going with what the highest percentage outside of the no preference said. So you keep saying that that's not what. So where are you getting that from?
It says the region. So we're not the region, we're a district. So
But you said in the survey.
Yeah, in the survey, the first question is, what is a consistent week long? We're not doing consistent week long. We're doing our own thing. The second question, if we did do a consistent week long, do you want to have a long weekend? We're doing that. And the third question is, if the region picks a consistent one, what would be your preference? So we've selected first week of April, not because of that. My understanding is because of where the election falls. But we're not following what this survey says at all.
So just because of the word region in there,
Correct.
you're saying that completely changes. See, now I would have, I guess, ignored the region part and looked at, this is what the people who took the survey said. The majority, and that's, I think, what's our discussion at the workshop, was that the majority of the people wanted the first week of April.
But I think that's again where the survey questions could be written more clearly, but in the end, the whole point of the survey was a consistent spring break between other neighboring districts. The first two questions address that exact thing. The third question is kind of like, well, if there is a consistent one, if we had a choice of which one to pick, which one would you do? It's kind of like, if not the first two, then the third one doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think Noah does bring up a good point. That is open to interpretation. I read it exactly the same way he did. And I'm sure, again, there's people on multiple spectrums that read that differently. So how valid is that data based on how people understood it? We don't really know, I guess. So again, something to definitely revisit as we go forward based on kind of where we are with this right now.
Sue?
Well, I agree that the calendar is already published. And although I got the same, I think everybody got the same emails that I got regarding the fact that they wanted the change. And it seems that we are very open to relooking at the calendar for next year and taking a look at that and getting a better feel for what our staff and parents want for next year. But I do think that there are people that could have planned their vacations already, and this would be a serious setback for those people. I did hear the teacher who spoke, and I agree. If you can spend time with your own children, you would want to do that. And we'll take a look at it. Whoever's on this board next year, we'll take a look at it and restudy it.
Anything else? Okay, if it's been moved and seconded, we've had discussion. All in favor of adopting the new calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay? That passes. We are on number 11, board member suggestions for future agenda or workshop items.
Come on, somebody say the 1920 calendar.
1920 calendar, please.
Okay, seeing nothing else, we'll take a 5-minute recess while Brian takes down the cameras, and then we'll come back for our discussion and workshop. We are at recess.